What is up, fellow humans? We are back with another Does It Domesticate video where we go over the ins and outs of keeping a specific species of venomous snake. So today we're going over the West African Gaboon Viper, one of the most commonly found exotic venomous snakes in captive collections. Now, we're going to be looking over a bunch of different factors and getting a total score from averaging out those factors. And of course, those factors are difficulty of care, expense, rarity, potential risk, and why are you so dang mad at me? Also known as the disposition of the animal. So we're going to be going through all of these different factors to determine whether or not keeping a West African Gaboon Viper as a pet is a good idea for you. Fair warning, it's probably a bad idea. Shocker, I know. So let's get right into this. Why are you slowly turning your head at me as if you want to strike at me? Please don't do that. Luckily, we are doing a bit of a camera trick here. I am several feet behind this table, so she would have to lunge and continue forward towards me in order to actually pose a risk here. But we are still going to give her some attention because, what are you doing? How about, okay, we're going to reposition her and then we'll get started. Now that we've gone ahead and repositioned Gabby the Gaboon Viper here, she seems like she wants to move around a little bit. That's okay. We'll try to keep her as much in camera frame as possible. But starting things off with the difficulty of care. Now, a lot of people actually struggle with keeping Gaboon Vipers in captivity, and that's due to a couple of different reasons. Reason number one is going to be because most Gaboon Vipers are, of course, wild caught. And as many of you guys probably already know, wild caught animals are historically much more difficult to keep alive in captivity because they come in with wounds or parasite loads that have to be dealt with. They need to be acclimated to captivity. You need to get them eating, get them started, and basically just make sure they still have the will to live, because some snakes and some animals come in and they just have no fight left in them. It's very sad, unfortunately. It's a practice that certainly has a lot of cons to it. You can say what you want about wild-caught animals being kept as pets. I certainly see the cons to it. I certainly see some pros as well. I think best case scenario, wild-caught species are brought in for people that know more or less what they're doing with establishing them, so that the survival rating, it goes up with wild-caught species, leading to captive breeding, and then they can be bred in captivity and sold in captivity rather than just constantly bringing in large quantities of wild-caught animals, because that's more of a profit thing rather than an actual getting them established and getting them out there in the pet trade kind of thing. So I think a shift in priorities with that would certainly go a long way. I don't really see it happening anytime soon, and there's really no way to regulate it so that things would be like that. So, rant aside, that's the number one reason why people struggle with these. They come in, they're wild caught, and they just don't survive well, right? They have a low survival rate out the gate. That doesn't mean they can't be established in captivity. Gabby here was a wild-caught Gaboon Viper. I've had her for probably close to 3 years now. I got her a long time ago, and she's been doing very, very well for me, which is good. It's not something that happens a lot, but we had no problem making sure she was established and keeping her healthy in captivity, which was great. But that doesn't go for everyone. Now, another big problem that people have, I would say there are two more big problems with keeping these alive in captivity. Number one, hydration. Hydration is a big thing for Bitis, for Gaboon Vipers, Rhino Vipers, pretty much any of the large, heavy-bodied vipers in that genus. A lot of times you may find yourself struggling to get them to drink water on their own. You need to make sure they're hydrated. So a lot of that means you're going to be soaking them weekly. So you're going to have to make sure you're getting your Gaboon Viper hydrated by giving it soaks, because the odds are fairly high that it won't drink out of the water bowl. Now, I actually just 2 days ago saw Gabby drinking out of her water bowl, so that's great, right? She's got a bigger will to live than most wild-caught Gaboons I've seen, but of course she's been established in captivity for a while now, so maybe it's not quite as unlikely. but you have to be soaking your Gaboon Viper to make sure that he or she stays hydrated, which is something that is not feasible for a lot of people because it means getting more hands-on with the animal, right? People are going to be more uncomfortable the more they have to handle a venomous snake. If you're not used to venomous snakes, of course. I don't mind handling venomous snakes at all. It's not really something that I usually factor in when I personally get an animal. But if you're thinking about getting into keeping venomous snakes, then a Gaboon Viper definitely may not be for you just because of that fact alone, because you're going to be needing to handle it more often than just cleaning out the enclosure, right? Because you're going to have to be taking it out and handling it just to soak it. So something to keep in mind for sure. And another reason that I see these animals dying in captivity quite frequently is because of how they are fed. A lot of people overfeed Gaboon Vipers. Now, obviously, this is a very heavy-bodied animal, very thick. I mean, if you look at it next to my arm here, and I obviously have absolutely no muscle mass whatsoever, she's probably about 2 to 3 times as thick as my forearm. So they are naturally fed a lot because they're a big snake. But, and this is very important, you have to look at the science behind the animal, its habits, and how its habits affect its body. So this is an animal that's very sedentary. It doesn't move a lot, right? Everyone knows that Gaboon Vipers have this incredible forest floor camouflage, right? All down their backside and along its sides. They rely on that camouflage for ambush hunting in the wild. They'll sit in one spot for days or even weeks straight trying to catch a meal as it comes by. What that means is their metabolism sucks, right? They have a very slow metabolism because they don't burn any calories. They're sitting there in one spot for days or weeks, not burning any calories, not getting any kind of workout for their metabolism, and that causes them to not lose a whole lot of weight. So if you are feeding a large rat or jumbo rat to your Gaboon Viper every single week, like you may feed some of your other snakes, that's going to be a problem. Your Gaboon Viper is going to get overweight and it's probably going to die. And that's something that I see quite a bit. Gabby here eats once every month or so. She does not need to eat very frequently. She's got plenty of mass on her. She gets enough water through soaks and her water bowl, but we do obviously hydrate her rat as well whenever we do feed her, just to get her extra hydration. But the point is, they don't need to eat a whole lot. So there's no reason for you to be feeding them too much. Those are basically the most frequent things that I see people get wrong when it comes to keeping Gaboon Vipers. They either overfeed them, underhydrate them, or just can't get them established in general because they're wild caught. Now, there are some people breeding them in captivity. If you get a captive one, then obviously establishing it in captivity or acclimating it to captivity when it's already been in the wild isn't going to be nearly as difficult. So you can get rid of that one if you can find a captive bred Gaboon Viper, which will cost more, but we'll get back to that later on in the video. All in all, if you know what you're doing ahead of time, I think these are easy snakes to keep in captivity. If you don't, and you go in blind, like a lot of people do, a lot of people go to a reptile expo that has venomous snakes, they see a pretty Gaboon Viper, they're mystified by the beautiful pattern they have, or they've seen them in zoos previously, and they're like, whoa, I could own that, and they jump in and they get a Gaboon Viper as their first venomous snake. 9 times out of 10, that animal ends up dead. Just because they can't take care of it properly. They can't establish it, they don't hydrate it enough, or they feed it every week like they feed their corn snake. So it's all about doing your research ahead of time, and that goes with most animals. But we're not going off of that. We're going off of the baseline of, I want that animal, let me get it, let me try to keep it alive. And for that, I would say that I give it a total score. Can I help you? And for that, I give it a total difficulty of care score of 4 out of 10, with 10 obviously being very easy to care for, 1 being very difficult to care for. So 4 out of 10, it's doable if you actually think about it and know what you're doing. If you just jump in, 9 times out of 10, it's probably gonna die. And you may think, well, then the score should be lower. There are snakes that we have discussed and will discuss in the future where 99 times out of 100, they will die. So it's not quite on that level. 4 out of 10 for difficulty of care. This message is sponsored by Raycon. I got a pair of Raycon Everyday Earbuds Classics a few weeks back, and honestly, I've been using them every single day. They're perfect for activities around the house, and I always wear them while doing maintenance for my animals or when I'm out running errands to help pass the time. I'll never use any of my older pairs of earbuds again. These are by far the most comfortable pair I have ever owned and have the sound quality to match. You can choose between active noise cancellation for when you just want to block everything out and enjoy your music, or awareness mode for when you're out in public and still want to be aware of your surroundings. The Raycon Everyday Earbuds Classics have a 32-hour battery life with the case, and if that's not enough for you, the quick charge function can give you 90 minutes of playtime from just a 10-minute charge. When you have as many animals as I do, that leads to a lot of time cleaning up after them, and these make that process a lot more enjoyable. They are truly a necessity. The Everyday Earbuds Classics are here for the holiday season. Raycon audio products are up to 20% off this holiday season. Just click the link in the description or go to buyraycon.com/JoeyJ to save on Raycon audio products site-wide. Order by December 15th to guarantee delivery by Christmas because great gifts shouldn't show up late. All right, guys, next up, we're going to talk about the expense of the animal. This is a pretty easy cut and dry one on this, guys. These are very attainable animals, so there is a precedent with price that's very easy to go on. Now, for a baby wild-caught Gaboon Viper at a reptile expo, you are generally going to be seeing them anywhere between $100 and $200. I would say $125 to $150 is probably dead on average for what I see with baby wild-caught Gaboon Vipers or baby captive-born Gaboon Vipers. That basically what that means is a pregnant female Gaboon Viper comes in and then she drops a bunch of babies and they sell those babies as captive-born since they were born in captivity, but they weren't bred in captivity. There is a difference with that. You'll see those go for around 150 bucks, right? Very cheap. But if you want to obviously add to the chance of the animal surviving and better yet thriving in captivity, we need to talk about the captive bred Gaboon Vipers. And those are going to be more expensive. For a captive bred Gaboon Viper, even that, it's not bad. You're probably going to be talking anywhere from $350 to $450. I think I've definitely seen them in the $300 to $400 range fairly recently, and they're somewhat attainable. You do have to look out for them a lot more. You see tons of wild-caught Gaboon Vipers flood the market, but those captive-bred ones you definitely need to seek out a little bit more intensely if you want to find them. Overall, they are a very cheap snake, right? Even if we average the two, it's going to be 200 bucks. For a Gaboon Viper, 200, 250. That's very, very cheap. Now, I'm not going off the corn snake ball python pay scale where you can go to the show and get one for 20, 30, 40 bucks. If it's a normal or one gene that, looks pretty normal. We're going off of the overall market. And overall, that's not an expensive snake at all, right? Because the setup is going to cost more than the animal. In my eyes, if the setup costs more than the animal, it's not actually that expensive of an animal, right? So, for expense, we are going to say that it is a 9 out of 10 for expense because it is a very cheap and easily acquired animal, especially if you get a wild-caught one. Very easy to get, very cheap to get, doesn't mean you should get one. Next up, we're going to talk about Rarity, which ties into the last column that we discussed here, right? Rarity definitely ties into the expense of the animal generally. It's just supply and demand and basic market economics, right? The more of an animal is available, the cheaper the animal will generally be, unless the supply gets outdone by the demand, right? If everyone wants one, even if there is a pretty high supply, the price will still go up. With these, the supply is just so high that the price is always going to stay down, unless for whatever reason we're unable to bring in wild-caught Gaboon Vipers in the future. Then obviously the price will start increasing as only captive-bred animals become available. But that is not the case. So, rarity for the Gaboon Viper, the West African Gaboon Viper specifically, because there is an East African Gaboon Viper that is much more difficult to find. But the West African Gaboon Viper, very easy to find. You see them at every single venomous reptile expo, bar none. Like, I don't think you can go to a venomous expo and not see anyone with a Gaboon Viper for sale. We are going to give that a solid 9.5 out of 10 for rarity. The only reason it's not a perfect 10 out of 10 is because it is venomous. So you do actually need to know where to get a venomous snake. But if you know where to get a venomous snake, you know where to get this venomous snake. All right, next up, perhaps the most important thing that we're ranking this animal on, and this goes for any venomous snake, is the potential risk. This is what everyone wants to know. It's what everyone needs to know, because it's the most important thing when it comes to keeping an animal, is can it harm you, and what are the odds that it does harm you? For the Gaboon Viper, the potential risk is certainly present. They are venomous. They are known for having one of the highest venom yields of any snake on the planet, and the largest fangs of any snake on the planet. Up to 2 inches long. Believe me, that's big. Above average, no matter what anyone else says. You don't want that going inside of you. 2 inches is way too much to take. Believe me. You do not want to get an envenomation from a Gaboon Viper. Straight up, full stop. It's a bad bite to get. A very bad bite to get. Now, you may be thinking, ooh, a cobra, a mamba, a taipan, any of these other, neurological venomous snakes, these elapids, highly toxic snakes are going to be a worse bite. And without treatment, I would agree with you. It would probably be a much worse bite. However, when we're talking about treatment, those, if treated earlier, may not have as worse of lasting physical effects as a snake like this. The Gaboon Viper destroys muscle tissue, right? The venom attacks, destroys muscle tissue. It's not pretty. It's very bad. They do have a fairly substantial fatality rate as it sits, but on top of that, the amputation rate is huge, okay? If you don't get treatment immediately for a bite from a snake like this, it's going to be absolutely devastating. And I say that because I don't want you underestimating this animal. A lot of people jump in with a first venomous snake that's a Gaboon Viper just because they like them or think they're pretty, and they don't take risk into account. You have to take risk into account. You can't just say YOLO and just hope for the best, okay? I'm a guy that likes to wing things. Believe me, I am. Don't wing this. Terrible idea. You don't want to get bit by this. This is probably the most common exotic venomous snake bite that happens in America. Either the Gaboon Viper, the monocled cobra, or maybe the bush viper. Probably not. There have definitely been a number of bush viper bites, but probably the Gaboon Viper or monocled cobra would be my guess for most exotic venomous snake bites that happen. Don't be one of those numbers, please. Look at some pictures. That's something that everyone should do before they get a venomous snake. Go on Google, look up pictures of snake bite victims from that type of snake. Look up Gaboon Viper snake bite. Look at some pictures, pull up some research papers, go over everything, and ask yourself, sit down and ask yourself, is this something that I want to potentially deal with in the future? Is this something that I want to be a potential risk? And you have to be okay with it. You have to sit there and be like, I'm okay with the risk because I want to keep it that badly, because I love these animals, I'm passionate about these animals, right? It's something you have to sit down, think about, and decide. And it's that simple. The risk is there for these. You may sit there, you may think, oh, it's not moving around a whole lot. Oh, it's not very reactive, right? Gaboon Vipers are known for being relatively shy snakes. However, once you piss it off enough, you have to remember They also have one of the fastest snake bites on the planet. Their strike is insanely fast and insanely powerful, okay? If it strikes at you, there's a good chance it will hit you because they don't usually strike unless they're gonna hit the target, okay? They don't go out of their way to waste the energy. Believe me, these snakes do as little as possible that they can get away with. So, all things considered, with their fairly devastating venom, though their somewhat shy personality, I would say their overall risk is going to be around, this is a bit tougher. It's a bit tougher to quantify this. I'm going to give it a 4. Yeah, I'm going to give it a 4 out of 10 for the potential risk. Because we're talking worst case scenario, angry Gaboon Viper, not the 90% that are shy, right? And those shy ones, if you do enough, they will still go. They will still strike out at you 100%. All right, everyone, this leaves us with one category remaining, and that is, of course, the "why are you so mad? Please stop hissing at me" category, or the disposition of the animal. As you can see, Gabby is not happy with me right now, right? She's sitting on the table, fairly bright lights, crazy, weird, skinny white dude sitting behind the table, doing hand gestures, talking loudly. Well, I mean, no external eardrums, but you know, we're in an enclosed room. There's definitely vibrations that the snake senses for sure. There's a lot going on, right? She's unhappy. But we're averaging the disposition of this specific species for this. And truth be told, this is generally a more shy snake species. They don't like to bite. They really don't. They do it. When people push their luck, people piss them off, and they will do it. If you think, hey, this Gaboon Viper is so shy, it's in the corner of the enclosure, let me just grab the water dish to clean it out and fill it up. And you reach in there, it's gonna eventually tag you. I don't care how nice you think it is. That Gaboon Viper is going to bide its time, and one of these days you're gonna get a little bit too close, a little too carried away, a little too complacent, and you will get tagged by the Gaboon Viper. And that is what happens so frequently with this snake species. Like I said, one of the most frequent exotic venomous snake bites that happens in the US. But overall, the disposition of this species is generally very shy. When they're angry, when they're unhappy, their first go-to is going to be to inflate and deflate their body by inhaling and exhaling a lot of air, resulting in a loud hissing sound that she will likely do if I touch her tail here. So as you hopefully could hear there, you could certainly tell by her body language when she lifted her head off the ground. That's what they'll do. They'll lift their head up off the ground. They'll inhale and exhale a lot of air, leading to a loud huffing or hissing sound. That's their go-to. It's what they'll do almost every time before striking, if you're messing with them. So that being said, all things considered, I would say that their disposition, or why are you so dang mad at me, is going to be a solid 8 out of 10. They really don't go out of their way to try and bite, but unfortunately people get very complacent with the snake species, which is what leads to a lot of those bites actually happening anyways. So that was the final category. So now we'll go through all 5 and average out the score for a total derpy or does it domesticate score. So let's do that now. So with a difficulty of care score of 4, an expense score of 9, a rarity score of 9.5, a potential risk score of 4, and a disposition score of 8. That leaves us with, what, 34.5, which if we divide by 5 is going to be, what, 6.9? So yeah, that'll give us a total overall derpy score of 6.9. So does that mean you should go ahead and get a Gaboon Viper? Probably not. I would recommend, if we ever do one of these Does It Domesticate series videos and the animal gets above an 8, I would say maybe you could consider it as a first venomous snake. I would not consider the Gaboon Viper to be a good first venomous snake or a very good pet in general for 99.9% of the population. So remember guys, if there's anything to take away from this video, do your research, do the best you can at getting informed before getting a pet of any kind, especially a venomous snake, which is something that could potentially end up killing you. Do all of the research you can, be as prepared as you can, and when the time comes, don't jump into decisions just because you have the opportunity to. Make sure you're ready. That being said, this was another Does It Domesticate video. I hope you guys all enjoyed, and I will see you all on the next one. Later, everyone.